Hello, everyone. We've got Hanouf joining.
Yes.
Just giving a bit of time. Sorry for the couple of minutes late start. And I believe everyone should be seeing the screen. All right. Take Saudi. We're here to kick off an AMA session, Ask Me Anything, about our recent launch in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We're happy to take questions toward the back end of the session. We're going to kick off with a few intro slides. I'll be doing them in English, and Hanouf will be going over them in Arabic for the Arabic listeners who joined us today. So if you're listening in and wanting to hear us in Arabic, please bear with us for the first few minutes until I'm done with the intro slides, and we can take questions in dual language. This is our first time. Please also keep in mind first dual language kind of webinar that we do in real time. Usually we separate out those sessions. We thought to combine them to have maximum participation. Great. So back to basics. We just want to set the scene why stake exists and why we're here in Saudi Arabia. Uh, since the beginning, we always believed that the real estate asset class is filled with pain points, filled with problems and friction, mostly around the high capital requirement to participate in the asset class, essentially to invest in it. Uh, Historically, you needed large sums of money to afford buying a property, or in the context of Saudi, buying into real estate funds. Uh, from a experience standpoint, we're really big on making the journey a lot easier, a lot more convenient for investors, because we've always thought as a heavy asset class. Essentially, we say heavy like that. What we mean essentially is it's filled with inconvenience. When you want to buy a property, you have to work with different brokers. You have to go through offline experiences, paperwork. It's clunky, and typically the experience is full of hassle. And we wanted to solve for that. Uh, by the same token of the high capital bar for you to enter, there was a key uh, aspect of investing in real estate, which meant that you're concentrating your capital in a single asset typically. Whereas if you had the ability to come in at a lower entry point, you can diversify. The market is still filled with you know information asymmetry. We say basically sellers know more than buyers, um, and data is not readily available, so it's a obscure or opaque market from a transparency perspective. You also have uh, less alternatives in the UAE. REITs are virtually non-existent or non-performing. When it comes to Saudi Arabia, REITs are available, but again, the experience of entering them is slightly inconvenient in terms of accessing the stock market, or the risks that are attached to the REITs are not essentially the underlying assets performance doesn't capture the underlying performance of the assets that are in the portfolio of the REITs, and that is meant to be kind of solved through our solution. And last but not least, liquidity. When you're buying an asset that's so high in value, there's only a limited pool of people that can buy it off of you, and hence you can't liquidate as easily as when you have a product that is much lower in value or entry point. We set out to solve all this, so that's our mission. We empower everyone to own and build wealth through real estate in a different way than in the past. You can buy a share of any property or a stake from as little as 500 dirhams or riyals, which equates to $136 if you're coming from outside the region. You can do it very fast in under 3 minutes. You can, by the same token of the low entry point, diversify your portfolio to get a better risk return profile than concentration. When it comes to transparency, we empower users or equip users with the benefit of full information on the assets that they're acquiring. Goes from all the due diligence that we do in-house. We make that readily available. Third-party valuations, 3D tours, financial projections, you name it. We're all about making informed investment decisions when it comes to what we enable users to do. We also distribute rental income on a monthly basis. We're quite big on that. And lastly, we've created a platform that allows you to enter and exit with speed and ease in case you need your capital back. Of course, with the premise always that buying real estate is meant to be for the long term. What's our track record been so far? Well, we've crossed actually 850,000 users to date. This slide is slightly outdated. We have investors on the platform from all walks of life, all nationalities, practically based in all countries. We've got phenomenal ratings. Whether it be on Apple Store or Google Play Store or Trustpilot, our ratings are quite high. We've been noted by all the major press media outlets, and this has translated into exponential growth when it comes to our total transactions carried out on the app. And this obviously likewise correspondingly uh, translates into high income distributed to our users. Close to 23 million dirhams have been distributed to our user base so far. The portfolio keeps on growing. It's now about 330 properties in Dubai in less than 4 years. As you can see from the pictures, we've really looked after our portfolios, and we made sure that they're continuously performing and or distributing income to our investors. And so far, in Saudi Arabia, we took note of the massive opportunity in front of us. We have an economy, a G20 economy that is ranked one of the most highly probable to grow and outpace other G20 economies um, in this group. Um, from a real estate standpoint, the market has historically been closed to foreign owners, and by looking purely just at the example of Dubai and the UAE, what happened ever since freehold ownership opened up, you can easily kind of also project out what's going to happen in terms of growth and how much capital stands to come into the kingdom. But putting that aside, the population in Riyadh, places like Riyadh, is meant to grow very fast. It has already been growing quite a lot, and this has reflected in the property prices. But you can make some of the highest yields, and there is a tremendous amount of undersupply, which means that there's a lot of building activity, but a lot of demand from incoming expatriates as well as incoming uh, domestic migrants moving to the capital and trying to capitalize or capture the economic opportunities being created, in Riyadh. I'm actually in Riyadh today um, to speak to you guys, and it's really fascinating to see this market kind of grow and expand into a scale that has been never seen before. And for the first time ever, we're allowing anyone from anywhere in the world to capture this market opportunity and invest in real estate in Saudi Arabia through private funds. So that is essentially uh, our go-to market when it comes to Saudi Arabia. Very much like you're buying a share of a property, a single apartment or a villa or a townhouse in the UAE. In Saudi Arabia, you're going to be buying a share of a building on a much larger scale to cater for the size of the demand and the opportunities in the market. So it's kind of like a REIT, we say, but really much, much better in that we remove a lot of the, let's say, deficiencies of that, the REIT instrument, REITs being real estate investment trusts. And we're happy to take any questions in the latter part of the webinar. But in terms of minimum ticket, you can invest from 500 riyals. And because these funds are regulated by CMA, they're also subject to a high degree of scrutiny and a high degree of due diligence. They have a fixed duration, um, typically, 4 to 5 years, if not less, if it's a development fund or a development property. But we essentially bucket them into two. You can see here the income funds are ones that distribute periodic dividends, either monthly or quarterly or semi-annually. We're making sure that they try to all be monthly to make the product very similar to the UAE product. And I should say even more attractive in terms of yield, especially also from a risk standpoint. Typically, these assets have long duration or long-term tenancies in it. And secondly, we also are planning to offer development funds that don't pay dividends, but are geared towards capital growth. And this is through building out the projects and selling them over time, either off plan or when they're completed. And then these types of funds are the ones that are shorter in maturity typically. So we've already launched our first opportunity on the app. You can download and unlock the Saudi experience and see it for yourself. You can make 100 riyals bonus by completing your onboarding. Uh, and just a few teasers. It's an income generating asset in a very popular district in northern Riyadh. Uh, it's multi-tenancy, so it's quite diversified in terms of rental income um, diversification on the tenants, and it's a commercial and office building. So you have anchor tenants who are occupying the offices and super popular brands that are on the retail front on the high street. The fund manager is called Mulkiya Investment. It's a publicly listed fund manager regulated by the CMA. And the developer is a very well-known uh, private company called the Rashki Seventh, who is specialized in building such commercial slash retail slash office plazas in Riyadh. Quick recap on who we have as backers. MEVP, Middle East Venture Partners, is one of our leading venture capital backers. We have Wa'ad by Aramco and Mubadala, as well as Al Jumeirah Holding, who's a very prominent uh, Saudi family. Lastly, Republic is a international or US originally fintech company that specializes in private asset investing. As I mentioned before, we are regulated by the Capital Market Authority in Saudi Arabia. We are audited and advised by Guidance Financial Group in terms of Sharia compliance. All our operations, even in the UAE, across both jurisdictions, are Sharia compliant, and we bank with SAB, ANB, and SCC Bank in the kingdom. Some of our Saudi partners and IC members are displayed in front of you. Industry leading experts in the field of real estate and investment management, being Abdullah Saloom, the chairman of our board and the investment committee. He's head of real estate at the Rashki Capital. Ahmed Al-Mughamis is part of Jadwa and Jadwa Investments, a leading fund manager in the kingdom, especially in the field of real estate and private equity as well. Abdulaziz Al-Bassam is the CEO of Al Jumeirah Holding, very prominent, as I mentioned before, Saudi family and real estate group. And lastly, Mishari Al-Abbad, who's a lawyer by practice, is one of our board members. And that's my first intro. I think I went a bit over time, but I'm happy to now hand over to Hanouf bin Saeed, our general manager in Saudi Arabia, to walk you through pretty much the same kind of intro in Arabic. And if you're listening twice, please bear with us until the end so we can take all your questions.
Yes, thank you, Manar. منار، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أتكلم معكم من فرعنا بالسعودية، ومبسوطين وسعيدين جدا لتواجدنا اليوم، ولنا نشرح لكم إيش الفرص اللي ممكن اليوم تلقونها عندنا بمنصة ستيك. العقارات، الكل عارف أنه في الماضي الوصول لها صعب، ما نقدر نلقى تنوع لما يجي على الاستثمار، المعاملات تعتبر معقدة، في ضعف في السيولة، ما في بدائل، وفي فرص محدودة، وفي مع غياب الشفافية، فما نقدر نلقى كل التفاصيل عن العقار إلا لو دخلنا بالموضوع بتفصيل وكنا يعني قريبين من العقاريين وقدرنا، وهذه شغلة مو بسهلة. فهي يفتقر الأشخاص إلى طريقة استثمارية رقمية اللي اليوم إننا جايين فيه بستيك، وتكون منخفضة التكلفة في مجال العقارات. Next please. فهذا السبب اللي يخلينا نطلق ستيك بالسعودية اليوم، أن نمكن الجميع أنه يتملك ويبني ثروته من خلال هذه المنصة العقارية السهلة والسلسة. طبعا بتبين فيها لك نوع استثماراتك، إيش نوع الاستثمارات اللي بدك تدخل فيها، كم العوائد اللي بتحقق عليها. تقدر تستثمر ب3 دقائق، كأنك تشتري بأمازون، لكنك تشتري عقار، وعقار من أول ما تقدر توصل له. تقدر تشتري حصة بالعقار من طريق الصندوق بالمبلغ اللي تبغاه. تقدر تبدأ ب500 ريال وتطلع للمبلغ اللي تبغاه. بعد كذا بالنسبة لبيع حصتك، استثمر في قيمة محفظتك وحقق زيادة في رأس المال. أنت بتحقق زيادة برأس المال من شرائك للعقار هذا، لأنه بعد فترة العقار هذا بترتفع قيمته. وشعارنا اليوم هو دخلك الثاني، لأن من خلال منصة ستيك يقدر الواحد يبدأ يكون ثروته ويبدأ يجي دخل من التوزيعات الشهرية اللي نقدمها اليوم، وبالذات على الفرص المدرة للدخل أو الانكم جنريتنج، اللي اليوم واحدة من الفرص اللي أطلقناها بالصندوق وتقدر تبدأ تستثمر فيها من اليوم. بالنسبة لآخر نقطة مهمة، شفافية كاملة. تقدر تطلع على العقار، مين اللي ماسكه، مين المطور العقاري، مين الفند مانجر أو مدير الصندوق، كم العوائد اللي راح تجيني، كم المبالغ اللي أقدر أدخل فيها، والتنوع كمان. next slide please. اي خلينا نتكلم شوي عن انجازات منصة ستيك. طبعا ستيك جاية طبعا بخبرة جميلة وبنجاحات بالسوق الإماراتي، وهذا الهدف اللي خلانا نجي اليوم، عشان نبغى نجيب العلم هذا الجديد، أو خلينا نقول التكنولوجيا الجديدة للسوق السعودي، بحيث أنه يستفيد منها الشعب السعودي والعالم. تمكنا بسرعة من أن نصبح المنصة الرائدة للاستثمار العقاري في منطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا. اليوم ولله الحمد عندنا تواجد بالإمارات، عندنا على المنصة أكثر من 800 ألف مستخدم حول العالم، من أكثر من 170 دولة ومن 207 جنسية. فإحنا الحمد لله موجودين بكل العالم، والجميع اليوم يقدر يستثمر من خلال منصة ستيك. قمنا بطرح فرص بالإمارات أو بالسوق دبي، وصلت قيمتها اليوم ولله الحمد، أو جمعنا قيم على هذه الاستثمارات فوق 500 مليون، وتم توزيع أرباح على العوائد من الأجارات للمستثمرين فوق 20 مليون. next please. طبعا حتى الآن قمنا ببناء محفظة قوية زي ما ذكرت، طرحنا بالسوق أكثر من 330 عقار. هالعقارات طبعا على المدى القصير والطويل في أقل من 4 سنوات، فجايين بالخبرة هذه. طبعا العقارات في أماكن جدا جيدة بالإمارات، بحيث أن السعر فيها، سعر الوحدة بيكون يعني اللوكيشن حقها قوي، برايم لوكيشن، فتكون جيدة، فرصة جيدة للاستثمار على عوائد كمان جيدة، مؤجرة بالكامل وتجيك العوائد شهريا. next please. واليوم الحمد لله نقدر نقول أهلا بكم بستيك السعودية. والله الحمد أطلقنا أول فرصة. طبعا هدف إن جينا اليوم للسعودية الكل يعرف، والكل اليوم ما شاء الله يقدر يشوف الازدهار اللي قاعد يحصل بالدولة، والتوجه العظيم مع رؤية مملكتنا الحبيبة 2030. طبعا اليوم تعد السعودية من بين أكبر 20 اقتصاد عالميا، واحتلت المرتبة 16 من بين دول مجموعة ال20. والحمد لله في توجه كبير على أن العاصمة يكبر فيها عدد السكان بالعاصمة، يكبر من 7.5 مليون إلى يوصل إن شاء الله إلى 12 مليون. في كمان توجه كبير على أن المستثمر أو المواطن يتملك مسكنه الأول، وعشان كذا في ضخ كبير للوحدات السكنية. حجم الضخ تقريبا لين نوصل إن شاء الله 2030 تقريبا أكثر من 555 ألف وحدة. وهذا بيزيد إن شاء الله العرض، وبيصير في توازن بين العرض والطلب، وبيصير في توازن بالسوق العقاري، وبتصير في فرص أفضل بإذن الله. وهذا سبب تواجدنا اليوم بالسعودية. توجه الاقتصاد اليوم إلى القطاعات المختلفة عن النفط، مثل التكنولوجيا، السياحة وغيرها. next please. واليوم يعني نقدم لكم أول فرصة أو أول مرة نقدم الفرص للجميع من جميع أنحاء العالم، طبعا من خلال الاستثمار في صناديق استثمارية عقارية خاصة. احنا طبعا مرخصين من هيئة سوق المال، متوافقين مع الشريعة الإسلامية، وهذا شيء يهمنا جدا، ومسؤولية علينا أن نجيب فرص متنوعة واعدة يتم اختيارها بعناية، ويتم التأكد من قبل اللجنة الاستثمارية عندنا أن هالفرص جيدة. طبعا اللجنة الاستثمارية بعد شوي بنشرح لكم تتكون من إيش. إحنا تقريبا نشبه الريت، ولكن محنب بالسوق. إحنا خلينا نقول ريت خاص وسنجل آسيت، يكون عندك ندخل في مبنى واحد واضح، العوائد عليه واضحة، بعد 4 سنوات يصير البيع عليه، تكون بطريقة كمان واضحة. نوزع العوائد بطريقة شهرية. طبعا تختلف التنوع، نتنوع من سكني، تجاري، مكتبي، حتى لو يكون ميكست يوز او متعدد خلينا نقول الاستخدامات. عندنا صناديق مدير للدخل. المدير للدخل تجيك طبعا العوائد او التوزيعات على الديفيدند بطريقه شهريه. وبصراحه يعني ولله الحمد يعني نسب جيده جدا، وفيري اتراكتيف ان الواحد يدخل فيها. في عندك كمان الصناديق التطويريه، تكون فيها العوائد يمكن اعلى، وتكون فيها التوزيعات بعد فتره اطول. ولكن ان شاء الله حتى العائد فيها بعد البيع بيكون جيد. go to the next yeah, slide please. زي ما ذكرنا الحمد لله أطلقنا أول فرصة استثمارية على المنصة. اليوم اللي بيدخل في المنصة يقدر يبدأ يستثمر بالسعودية وبعقار جيد في موقع جيد بحي الياسمين، يعتبر بشمال الرياض. متوقع عليه العوائد إن شاء الله. يعني متوقع أن العقار هذا بإذن الله يرتفع قيمته بعد فترة، وهذا السبب بالدخول فيه اليوم. من واحد من أفضل المطورين بالسعودية ولله الحمد. عندهم الباع الطويل في الخبرة في التطوير العقاري، اللي هم الراجحي السابعة RJ7، ومع مدير صندوق جدا الحمد لله معروف، وعنده كمان الخبرة بالسعودية وبالصناديق العقارية اللي هم ملكية الاستثمار. فاليوم اللي بيدخل على الابليكيشن وبيدخل بالسوق السعودي بتجيه تحصل على مكافأة مننا اللي هي 100 ريال، وتقدر إن شاء الله تبدأ استثمارك بطريقة سهلة سلسة سريعة وخيارات مختلفة. بالنسبة لمنصة ستيك، طبعا ولله الحمد عندنا دعم جيد من أسماء ولله الحمد معروفة وقوية بالسوق، أمثال أرامكو، أمثال مبادلة اللي هي بالإمارات، صندوق السيادي بالإمارات، وأمثال الجميح القابضة، وريبوبليك من أمريكا. فتقدرون تشوفون كيف ما شاء الله عندنا دعم بشكل قوي من السعودية ومن خارج السعودية. بالنسبة للترخيص، احنا مرخصين بالكامل من هيئة سوق المال ولله الحمد. حتى على مستوى الصناديق مرخصين، متوافقين تماما مع الشريعة الإسلامية وأحكام الشريعة الإسلامية. وعندنا شركائنا من البنوك، زي ما تشوفون هنا عندنا البنك الأول، وعندنا AMB، وعندنا STC بانك. وهذه من الأشياء المهمة اليوم، ومن مسؤولياتنا بستيك إن اليوم نختار الخيارات بعناية، ونتأكد أنها تكون فرص جيدة للمستثمر الفرد السعودي والأجنبي، المقيم والغير مقيم. طبعا اليوم عندنا الحمد لله فريق قيادي سعودي مميز انضم إلينا، في أعضاء في يعني في البورد ممبر عندنا، وفي الإدارة واللجنة الاستثمارية. عندنا أحمد المغامس جاي من جدول الاستثمار، وهو قانوني معروف. عندنا عبد الله السلوم من الراجح المالية، وهو عنده خبرة وباع طويل في القطاع، وبالذات في القطاع الاستثماري العقاري من خلال الصناديق. وعندنا مشاري العباد كمان من ستات. وعندنا عبد العزيز البسام من الجميح القابضة، وهو حاليا يشتغل رئيس تنفيذي للجميح القابضة. إذا كان عندكم أي أسئلة، إحنا اليوم جايين نسمع منكم ونسهل عليكم اكتشاف ستيك واكتشاف مستقبلكم وكيف تبنون ثروتكم معنا. تفضلوا.
طيب. Okay. Let me try and pick up two questions at a time, and then maybe I know if you can do the same, inshallah, in Arabic. And I will start with the most basic one that I can see, which is, and we've answered a ton of them live, on the Q&A. But the first question I can see that really needs a bit of explanation is how does yield work? Explain how yield works. Qasim is asking that question. When it comes to yield, um, it's essentially a function of having a productive asset, an asset that is generating income. Uh, and yield typically can be used actually in farms when you're growing agriculture and seeing how much a piece of land is producing in terms of product that you're able to monetize and create revenues from. Very similarly, that same concept applies when it comes to real estate that is built. Okay, and typically, unbuilt real estate doesn't have a yield because it cannot be used. But when it's built and it can be used, it has a yield component that's attached to it that we really like, and we find is the most secure way to build wealth in real estate, commensurate with your a lower risk kind of appetite, and actually make returns that are risk adjusted very attractive. I think income generating real estate, we're quite big on that, as Hanouf mentioned. Our slogan is your second income, and um, very much like uh, fixed deposits give you a passive income for taking low risk, putting your money in the bank. We can do better than that by giving you a higher yield or a higher return distributed on a monthly basis from rental income on real estate. Uh, so that question is hopefully answered through this kind of analogy. When it comes to the annual returns, the annual returns that we display are at the fund level, and stake fees actually are not 2.5%. I see that question here is the annual returns mentioned excluding stake fees of 2.5% at Etri. It's 2% actually, the subscription fee. It's very standard of fund offerings to have a subscription fee, but the return uh, on the fund is excluding the 2% that you pay as a surcharge on the way in, as when you subscribe to the fund. And if you want to pick up on two questions, go
في
ahead.
سؤال مكتوب: هل في بيع العقار بخسارة إذا في إيش يكون وضع المستثمر؟ هل يرجع له المبلغ بعد البيع أتوقع قصده، بس يكون أقل لأنه تم البيع بخسارة. طيب، هذا السؤال مرة جيد، وهذا من أسباب أن اليوم ستيك اختارت عقار بالعاصمة الرياض، بشمال الرياض، بحي يعني معروف جدا. اليوم احنا عندنا ارم او اور بارتنر متعاونين مع شركة عقارية تتأكد من الفرص، ايش العوائد اللي عليها وايش توقعاتها. فحرصنا يعني شديد الحرص انه العقار اللي اخذناه في برايم لوكيشن او في موقع جيد جدا، بحيث انه اليوم المتوقع عليه سنويا يرتفع باكثر من 10% باي ديفولت. هذا التوقع العقاري، خلينا نتكلم. وبإذن الله في حال أن الفرصة تغلق، متوقع أن مرة يعني ناخذها بحساسية وناخذها خلينا نقول أقل ريسك أو أقل مخاطرة. فنقول لك إن نتوقع الارتفاع بعد 4 سنوات 20%. هل 20% مفروض توزع بعد ما نسدد البنك، يعني الزايد من العقار يتوزع على الأبسايد على المستثمرين. فبإذن الله الخسارة مو إن شاء الله شيء موجود. هذا إن شاء الله إني جاوبت على سؤالك. بالنسبة للورثة بعد عمر طويل للجميع، هل في توريث للحساب؟ لأني بحثت بس ما حصلت إنه في توريث. بالتأكيد اليوم أي شيء باسمك موجود بإذن الواحد أحد. يعني هذا أصلا هذا يعني it's the normal، الطريقة الطبيعية للتوريث أن يورثونه الورثة بإذن الله. وطبعا حقك محفوظ في المنصة، ومحفوظ على مستوى طبعا يعني هيئة سوق تشريع من هيئة سوق المال. فالأمور طيبة إن شاء الله. You can go, Manar.
Sure. What's the expansion plan? Someone is asking, what is the expansion plan in Saudi Arabia? What are the major target cities, number of properties, and type of property acquisitions, residential or commercial? It's a very good question. So we, as I mentioned earlier, see a massive opportunity to play a role in the market in Saudi Arabia to distribute the opportunity to as many participants as possible, local, domestic, equally to foreign non-resident. And we want to look at the pockets of value in the Saudi market. This includes, firstly, first and foremost now, where the action is taking place most, which is Riyadh. Several areas within Riyadh that are actually uh, of most value, most attractive in terms of capital appreciation and upside, but also giving a blend of maybe more traditional areas that will hold most value more permanently, I would say, and stand to be timeless. We're talking about the North Riyadh being an area where mega developments are coming, and there's a whole Riyadh strategy to cover for the planning of that North Riyadh uh, area that is made up of multiple districts and multiple mega projects, as I mentioned, where we have a bias towards, but at the same time, we have opportunities in the pipeline that are in more traditional areas, closer to the center, that will stay, as I mentioned before, timeless. Areas like Slemania, Khuzama, and others, even around the kind of around the King Fahd Central Business District, that will be becoming available, and that will always retain value in our view. Um, when it comes to the target cities, I mentioned Riyadh first, but we are starting to look at projects in or buildings in Jeddah. Uh, we would love at some point in the near future to even look at quality properties in Mecca and Medina. But in the kind of, let's say, first year, large majority of our emphasis and focus will go towards, Riyadh, where there's, as I mentioned, a lot of incoming migration, a lot of undersupply and over demand, which leads to price appreciation, and ultimately as well, the rental market produces at current prices until prices really kind of adjust, because these moments are not also typically infinite in terms of time frame. These moments are short if you look back, and we have a moment in time right now where we can capture very high single digit yields to the tune of 7 to 9%, even sometimes a little even higher, in these prime areas in Riyadh. That is a market opportunity that should not be missed. So we're really focused on that front, but that's not to say that we are exclusively looking at just Riyadh. There's more to come in other cities, inshallah, in the future. We're quite excited about that. Residential is our historical bread and butter. We really wanted to do things differently when we first launched. Our first opportunity as a commercial and office uh, asset, but we're looking at a good blend so that you, as investors, can diversify your portfolios, um, blend between residential and commercial, and actually in the future, we're even looking at logistics and other really quite interesting asset classes when you look at development of those, as a strategy, development of those different categories of real estate. So the plan is very much to roll out, I would say 10 to 12 assets in the very near future. I would say a year or less. Um, and that pipeline is starting to kind of form in front of us, and you'll obviously be able to see as we roll these properties out and launch them sequentially. The second question I can take now as well from Muhammad is, what's the inherent risk foreseen by the stake team for the first investment opportunity? Uh, Conscious that we have users that are not fully onboarded, that are perhaps on this call, and CMA regulations uh, actually restrict us from disclosing uh, very specific details on the offerings of the platform. So I just want to caveat that in the first place. That's probably why you're not hearing all about our first investment opportunity in detail. But I'll tell you, inherent risks in any investment are that, especially in real estate, are that, income does not kind of materialize. And for that, we have built, different risk mitigants, different protections in place for investors. It could be long tenor leases that are covering the full fund term, or uh, rental guarantees from the asset developers, as well as, I would say, um, the ability to release these properties in the very quick short term in case there's a vacancy. So the combination of all that essentially goes back to saying this is a uh, low risk uh, opportunity from our perspective. Um, that's why we want to go back to basics with real estate. The market in Saudi Arabia has been historically very focused on development and taking higher risks where there's multiple variables that can go wrong. But when you look at the returns that you can make by buying finished assets that are income generating on day one, that really is quite powerful in terms of risk reward, and should make a good portion of your overall portfolio to make defensive, passive returns and help you build wealth without taking undue risk. Those are the kind of risks that we see in our offerings. Of course, in every investment as well, there's capital at risk. Hanouf briefly mentioned it in Arabic in her earlier question. Um, there's no investment that doesn't come with risk. There's no capital protection in our offerings, but it's like buying a property on your own. Historically, it's been the primary driver of private wealth creation in the past, and it's had historical consistent returns that are reliable. And if you subscribe to the story that real estate in Saudi Arabia has a lot of upside from all the migration, from all the demand and the capital that is about to be opened up and incoming to the country, um, as well as the national home ownership rate continuing, the multitude of government stimulus programs giving home ownership and new developments life. You really have a kind of very attractive risk reward kind of equation to consider that will hopefully translate to upside in the price of the properties that you're acquiring, rather than actually seeing any potential losses. But like any asset, assets prices can fluctuate, but over the long term, the most important is that if you invest for the long term, you will maximize your returns.
Uh, yeah. Can I take a question, Manar? Okay, so
Absolutely, it's your turn.
في سؤال: ليش محفظة الإمارات مختلفة عن السعودية؟ ليش ما أقدر أنقل المبلغ بينهم بسهولة ولازم أشحن من جديد بالسعودية؟ هل في خطط بدمج الحسابين، نقل المبالغ للشراء بسهولة؟ آم، ال- ال- السهولة بالمنصة أنك تقدر تنقل بين الحساب الإماراتي والحساب السعودي بضغطة زر، ولكن إن اليوم المشرعين مختلفين، فلازم كل مشرع له طريقة معينة بفتح يعني المحفظة تبعك، فعشان كذا في اختلاف. من ناحية نقل الحسابات، maybe this is something ممكن هذا شيء بنشوفه إن شاء الله. كيف راح يكون التخارج من صندوق ملكية بعد 4 سنوات، وكم متوقع البيع حتى لا يخسر المستثمر العوائد التي حصل عليها بسبب انخفاض قيمة العقار؟ طبعا التخارج بيكون بأكثر من طريقة. اليوم هذا أصل واحد، خلينا نقول موقع جيد بالرياض، مستأجر بالكامل، وإن شاء الله إن نحرص. عندنا اليوم شركة وصف اللي ماسكة العقار، وتتأكد إنه ونحرص إنه يصير في يعني استمرارية للمستأجرين، ويكون في تأكد إنه المبالغ واضحة، وهذا وإذا صار في أي خلل نلحقه من بدري. هذه مسؤوليتنا، لا تخافون. بالنسبة لبيع العقار طبعا بعد 4 سنوات بإذن الله بيكون بعد بإذن الله، يعني إنه متوقع العقار سعره يرتفع، وبيباع على، يعني أغلب الظن على صناديق عقارية، أو خلينا نقول صندوق الريت. عندك أكثر من خيار. في عندك الريتات ينباع عليها صندوق، في عندك العقاري اللي اليوم يدور فرصة ينباع عليه الصندوق، في عندك اليوم البروكرز الوسطاء ممكن كمان يبيعون الصندوق بسرعة. والهدف من اختيار العقار بمكان جيد ومن مطور معروف، والمستأجرين معروفين، هذا هو السبب عشان يكون إن شاء الله البيع بطريقة سهلة، وفي أكثر من طريقة للبيع زي ما ذكرت.
Great.
Yeah, you want to answer?
I'm going to take a few short ones,
Go
which
for it.
are what's the use of funds raised in the first fund offering? It's to acquire the property, very much like the use of of proceeds raised in the UAE is to acquire a property. Same exact use of proceeds. Uh, Someone asked a question regarding Jawed asked a question regarding the 5% tax withholding on dividend for non-residents in Saudi. Basically, anyone that's based abroad. This is a very important question to highlight, which is when you earn, give an example, if you invest 1,000 riyals and you make a 10% annual dividend yield. Let's say you make 100 riyals for the first year. You, as a foreign non-resident, if you're based outside the kingdom, you're going to receive, instead of 100 riyals, you will receive 95. So it's just taking 5% away from your income. And think about it, it results in a 9.5% yield net, as opposed to 10 if you were based in the kingdom. That's exactly how the 5% withholding applies to the dividend. Hope that answers the question. This same question was answered by Maria. Please explain numerically how much net income investors will get from 1,000 riyals. I just did that from the first opportunity. I can't really disclose the exact precise number, but it's pretty high up there, close to the 10% mark.
Yeah, do you want me to take one?
Yes, please go ahead.
ماذا إذا حصل ضرر في العقار مثل حريق أو أي شيء دمره تماما لا سمح الله، إيش يصير؟ طبعا جميع العقارات عليها تأمين بإذن الله، وفي حال لا سمح الله وجود أي شيء، يكون إن شاء الله تتغطى من التأمين بإذن الله. عند نسخ اسم شركتكم بالإنجليزي التي أنت مسجل. عند نسخ شركتكم منار، maybe you can help me in this one. عند نسخ شركتكم، اسم شركتكم بالإنجليزي اللي
مهم.
أنتم مسجلينه، يأتي رد من البنك الاسم غير صحيح.
اسم رد البنك مش صحيح.
أتوقع يمكن قصدهم حصة منفعة يكون اسمه بالبنك.
مظبوط مظبوط. اسم الشركة الليجل نيم تبع الشركة هو حصة منفعة للتقنية المالية. بتقدروا تشوفوا السي ار من رقم السي ار اللي بنعلنه، مسجلة بالمملكة السعودية، ورخصتها التقنية المالية وجمع أموال على منصة استثمار، زي ما رخصتنا هيئة سوق المال.
صحيح. فزي ما ذكر أستاذ منار، الاسم المرخص للشركة تحت هيئة سوق المال هو حصة منفعة، حصة من ستيك. البراند نيم ستيك، هذا اللي يختلف يعني. فأتوقع جاوبنا سؤال.
بالضبط.
بس عبد العزيز الجنيدي، إذا ممكن تجاوب على بعض الأسئلة.
أوكي، أهلا وسهلا بالجميع. طيب أنا ببدأ بسؤال. صوت قطع.
لا معك.
لا، سامعينك.
أوكي. يس أوكي. هل المشروع الحالي في حي الياسمين؟
معليش إذا بدك.
أوكي.
هلا
طيب هل المشروع
هلا
الحالي في حي
زبط.
الياسمين تحت التطوير أو جاهز ومؤجر؟ هو المشروع قائم أو أنشئ في 2019 وحاليا هو مستأجر بالكامل. فهو 100% مستأجر من مسجلين معروفين من ناحية المكاتب. هيد كوارتر هنجر ستيشن هناك، وفي هاف مليون وتميسة ومطاعم أخرى معروفة. فلا هو مستأجر وبعقود إيجار طويلة الأمد متوسطها 4 سنوات. إن شاء الله أن الإجابة كافية لهذا السؤال. طيب هل راح تنفذون نفس طريقة دبي في التخارج عن طريق التصويت في البيع؟ في السعودية الموضوع بيكون ككونسبت هو قريب من دبي، بس في السعودية كتشريع مختلف. احنا تحت توزيع وحدات صناديق الاستثمار العقاري اللي هي رخصتنا من هيئة سوق المال. فالصندوق بيكون له مدة معينة اللي هي 4 سنوات. فبعد كذا الصندوق راح يتخارج بإذن الله. راح يكون في، احنا الحمد لله فخورين بهذا الشيء، انه اول منصة تفتح باب التخارج المبكر في السعودية. فراح يكون ابتداء من السنة الثانية بإذن الله راح يكون في باب التخارج فترتين في السنة. منار
صحيح. أكيد.
Yes.
في سؤال. There's a question from JC. Is it 2% for stake and another 2% for Mulkia? No, it's only a single 2%. And it's actually for Mulkia, who is legally charging for the 2% subscription fees. And who will be managing the property? The developer Rashid Sabah has a property management arm called Wasf, who is managing the property. The building is it developed already, yielding or still greenfield? The building is fully developed, finished around about 5 years ago, and income generating, very popular, as I mentioned earlier. So it is not greenfield and it's yielding on day one.
I can take a question. في نشرة الإصدار مكتوب يحق لمدير الصندوق الاقتراض. ما هو الهدف من الاقتراض؟ هل هي نية وجود ربط بوديعة؟ الاقتراض إن شاء الله بيكون بالسنة الثانية، والاقتراض يساهم أو يساعد بأنه يكون في عوائد ثابتة في التوزيع وواضحة لكم وأفضل. السنة الثانية راح يكون في الاقتراض بإذن الله، وبيصير عندكم خلينا نقول توزيعات مميزة بالسنة الثانية، لأن في اقتراض حصل، فبيكون في توزيعات مميزة، بيصير في توازن بالتوزيعات. وهذا اللي يخلينا نحاول نتأكد أن التوزيعات بإذن الله تكون موجودة ومضمونة بإذن الله بعد يعني كل الدراسات. بس السنة الثانية راح يتم يعني يعطيكم زي السبيشال اور ديفيدند، توزيع مميز. بعدين بالسنة الرابعة لما يتم بيع العقار يتم سداد القرض بجزء، والجزء الباقي يتم توزيعه على المستثمرين، أو الزيادة في العقار يتم توزيعه. شكرا.
Question from Hamad. Do you have a referral program based on commission? My company is based in Canada and I have an office in Tunisia. Very interesting. We have a referral program in the UAE, and we are in the process of finalizing, hopefully, a version of it that will be applicable, inshallah, in Saudi Arabia. Another question from an anonymous attendee: how the investor will be recorded in CMA through our app. Also, after the properties will be fully funded and sold, is there a way that the investor will be recorded to authorities such as SPV in UAE? Very good question. So once you've invested in the fund and it closes, the fund issues units to every single investor in the fund. So very much like in the UAE, where you invest in a SPV, you get share certificates in an SPV that owns the title deed to the property. In Saudi Arabia, it is practically no different. You will be issued a unit certificate, uh, which is demonstrating your ownership in the fund, because what the fund manager does under CMA regulations, he issues fund units representing your ownership in the fund, which is a legal vehicle that you own, units in, that owns the property, and it owns the property very much like the UAE through an SPV, which is an entity formed in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the purpose of representing the fund and the fund unit holders' interests in the property. The SPV acquires the asset and the property, and the property's title deed is then issued in the name of the SPV. Question, I was about to answer it, I think. Is there a chance that a stake will get to Mecca or Medina market, since the hospitality properties such as apartments and so on are so sustainable and seems profitable there? Absolutely, Abdurrahman. We are evaluating projects as we speak. They're very exciting, and we hope to roll them out on the app in the near future.
في سؤال ما أدري صراحة إذا جاوبنا ولا لا، بس قاعد أحاول أجاوب كل الأسئلة. ما هي القيمة المضافة في الاستثمار مع ستيك عن الاستثمار المعتاد مع صناديق الريت المطروحة؟ اليوم أنت تستثمر بصندوق خاص. يعني اليوم هذا شيء متاح لك، أول ما كان متاح. يعني العقار عقار أو مبنى واحد بدل ما يكون أكثر من واحد مثل الريت أو الصناديق المطروحة. واحد واضح، مدته واضحة، العوائد عليه واضحة، والخروج وقت الخروج منه واضح. فتقدر تقول إحنا مثل الريت، بس أفضل من ناحية إنك تقدر تدخل بمبلغ بسيط، ومن ناحية إنه فيه مدة معينة وبعدين يصير التخارج، ومن ناحية التوزيعات الشهرية. أتمنى أكون يعني جاوبت على سؤالك.
Maria is asking, please explain exit strategy. So there's two ways of going about exit. Hanouf, kind of mentioned them in Arabic, but I'll go through them again. You have the fund exit at maturity, or at the end of the fund term, which is in income generating funds, 4 years typically. At the end of the fund term, the fund manager, who is in charge and responsible of maximizing investor returns, will exit the property to different likely suitors, interested parties that are in the business or interested in acquiring income generating assets. So the objective of the fund manager is to make sure that the asset retains its value and actually grows its value over time, essentially by maintaining it well, by enhancing its value, by enhancing its return profile, its rental income, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that you exit the property. The fund manager will sell the property to different types of buyers are available in the market. You have REITs that are in the business of acquiring income generating assets that are of good quality and performing. You have private funds that are equally interested in buying such assets. There is companies that need to deploy their balance sheet and make income generating returns on those assets. And then there are individual buyers out there, families in Saudi Arabia that have bought tons of properties on their own, family portfolios to make that second income and grow and continue. This has basically been the game that wealthy families have been playing since forever, and have grown their wealth by acquiring more and more properties in larger, more strategic, more valuable, more performing assets over time. So that is the exit strategy when it comes to the asset itself, and that if you hold until that point, you will get the benefit of. If you need to exit earlier, there are routes that we're building. Inshallah, in the second year, we hope to be live with our exit windows in Saudi Arabia, just like we are in the UAE, where we essentially allow platform investors to sell to each other in organized periodic windows. We do those every 6 months in the UAE at the moment, but the objective is to kind of make those quarterly in the future. And so there's think of that as an early exit route if you need your money back. But the objective here is to make sure that we maximize your returns over the long term, just like real estate is meant to be meant to be done as part of your portfolio. What happens? I've got an anonymous question. What happens if Stake goes bankrupt? Who will operate the assets in KSA? And is unit certificate equivalent enforced legally similar to title deed in Dubai? Very good questions. So Stake is a operator of a platform that connects investors with fund managers in Saudi Arabia, and ultimately properties. So both us and the fund managers are regulated by the CMA. When it comes to what happens if Stake goes bankrupt, it's actually no impact is realized or affects investors' ownership and return in the funds that they've bought units in. So you will always retain your ownership of the fund units. That will be evidenced by the fund unit certificates that you own, or the unit holder registry that the fund manager always keeps. And you have X number, or whatever number of units that you've bought, you will always own them, regardless of whether Stake in the unlikely scenario that Stake would potentially cease to exist. The assets continue to be operated by the property manager, okay, and the asset is again owned by a fund that you have unit certificates in. So there's zero impact on the operational side of the assets by the same token. Last question regarding unit certificates being equivalent or enforced legally similar to title deeds in Dubai. Very much so. Units of funds are recognized by the Capital Market Authority and legally by the laws of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as enforceable assets that are in the name of both resident investors as well as non-resident investors. They're governed by the rules of the CMA and the laws of the kingdom. And so enforceability and validity are protected at all times. Very similar to how a title deed works in Dubai.
Yeah, maybe I can close with this question. صح مستأجر ولكن بالمستقبل بيكون في عقارات غير مستأجرة. وهنا سؤالي، إذا لم يكن مستأجر ما بيتم توزيع العوائد. مرة أخرى إحنا هذه مسؤوليتنا. إحنا يعني الهدف من وجود المنصة اليوم ومن وجود تيم متكامل أكثر من 80 شخص ما بين السعودية والإمارات، أن نحرص على أن الفرص العقارية تكون واعدة ومرتبة، ونحرص أنها تكون زي ما ذكرنا لكم طريقة توزيعات شهرية. إذا لا سمح الله، يعني خليني بعطيك مثال، إذا لا سمح الله طلع مستأجر، إحنا مسؤوليتنا أن نعرف أنه بيطلع قبل بوقت، ومسؤوليتنا أن نغير المستأجر هذا بمستأجر أفضل. فبإذن الله يعني إحنا حريصين أن مثل ما نقدم لكم توزيع شهري نعطيكم التوزيع الشهري. فهذه بإذن الله مسؤوليتنا، وعشان نتأكد أن هذه المسؤولية سويناها متعاونين مع شركات عقارية عشان تدير هالعقارات وتتأكد من هالنقطة. شكرا.
All right. I actually didn't take note of the time, but we are 7 minutes overboard. We really got carried away answering as many questions as we can. Thank you for your time. I know there's still a lot of participants who are on the call, but at this point, we have to wrap up. Thank you so much for your time. All the questions that you've put in the chat that have not been answered, we'll try and answer them ASAP. Stay tuned, continue following us, and invest through the app. Hopefully, um, uh, when it's most convenient for you. Thank you so much.
يعطيكم العافية. شكرا.
شكرا.